Hello everyone, today I will be discussing a company called UMICORE and why I think it would be a good company to invest in. This is what UMICORE looks like. The different topics of this presentation we will be discussing are, first of all, the three ratios. After that we will talk about the profits of the company over a period of the last 3 years. After that, the shares, and last but not least, a conclusion. Let's start off with some ratios comparing the last 3 years of the company. I compared the liquidity ratios. It's important for a company to always keep an eye on the liquidity. They do this to find out whether there is still enough money to be able to pay the debts. If a company has no problems in this area, we call the company liquid. Liquidity can be calculated in 3 different ways. You have the quick ratio, the current ratio, and the cash ratio. So let's start off with the current ratio. The current ratio is actually the most common used method to calculate liquidity. The current ratio is a relative number. This is very useful because you can compare it with other companies. Of course, the current ratio has to be more than 2 to be good. You can see that this only applies in the year of 2018, and in 2017 and 2019 it sadly does not reach 2, which is not really a good thing. Now let's compare the quick ratio. The quick ratio is actually very similar to the current ratio. There is only one difference between the two. Stocks are not included in calculating the quick ratio. This is because stocks can be sold less quickly and stocks can actually go out of fashion. On this graph, you can see that this was not good at all for 2017. They nearly reached 0.3. Then again, in 2019, you had a slight decrease, but in 2018, it was actually really good. They almost reached the point at 1.4. Last but not least, let's talk about the cash ratio. This ratio is actually like an indicator for a firm's value under the worst case scenario. Let's say when the company is going out of business. It tells the current assets that could quickly be turned into cash, and what percentage of the company's current liabilities these cash or near cash assets could actually cover. Again, this was kind of bad in 2017, but went a lot better in 2018, and it decreased a little again in 2019. Now let's talk about profit and why the company is doing so poorly in 2019. I actually looked this up, and the company said that in a context of challenging conditions in major industries, they had reduced consumer confidence, especially in the automotive sector. Free cash flows improved significantly on an annual basis. UMICORE also temporarily had a slowdown of demand for its materials and had adapted its investments to the current slower growth rate. They actually already knew this was going to happen because they announced it in April. So even though they were doing very good in 2018, they actually weren't doing that great in 2019 because of this. Now more about the shares of the company. As you can see, the results achieved in the first half of the year were pretty impressive, with sales falling by 4% to 1.60 billion euros. But the market had expected a double-digit decline, operating the profit by increasing 5% to an amount of 376 million. In conclusion, if you compare 2019 and 2020, I think that if you have UMICORE shares in your investment portfolio, you will only make a profit if the share price rises. As UMICORE itself already knew in advance of the fall in 2020, I'm pretty sure they will rise again. As you can see in the picture, the company also had a dip in 2019 and then came through better than ever. So I strongly believe that the same will happen now. The company is already prepared for this and is going to do everything to improve itself. So it is better to invest now than when things get better and the company continues to rise.